Let's be real, divorce is pretty stressful. And once you add in a real estate, mortgage, other assets, it can get messy fast. So you might be wondering, can I keep the house? Do I need to sell the house? How do I do all this and protect my credit? Well, I'm Rebecca Richardson, aka the Mortgage Mentor, and I'm a mortgage expert that helps people navigate all these questions. So in this video, I'm going to show you options for the house, an option that most people don't know about, and ways that you can do this while still protecting your financial future. I do have a link to my divorce resource hub in the description, so be sure to check that out and subscribe for more information like this. Let's get into it. One of the biggest decisions in a divorce is what to do with your home. So there are three main options. You can sell it, you can keep it, or one of the spouses can keep it. So let's go through those. So the first one is if you sell the home. And this is one of those things that it's kind of the cleanest, easiest break because you're selling the home, you're getting the equity, and then splitting the equity according to the guidance that you're getting from your attorneys. Most of the time you're splitting it 50-50, but it's kind of going into the pot with all other assets that then are going to be divided up according to your agreement. This does give both people the option for financial flexibility, meaning, hey, you get your money, you take it and you go and you do what you want. Don't have to necessarily worry about taking money out of, say, a retirement fund to then buy out the other X or things like that. However, don't underestimate the stress and the cost and sometimes the tax implications of selling and moving and finding a new home, particularly if there's a situation where someone is going to have to change school districts or things like that. The second option would be that one of the spouses keeps the home. And a lot of times that is going to be done through a refinance. So the person that's staying in the home is going to refinance it into their name only and take the other spouse off title. Now, why would you want to do that? Part of the reason is because the spouse that is not living in the home anymore probably doesn't want to necessarily be on debt or be on the mortgage when they're not in control of the payment. And even though you have a separation or you have a divorce agreement that says that the other party is responsible for that payment, if there are late mortgage payments, that will affect your credit. So a lot of times the cleanest and easiest thing to do is to have the person that is staying in the home refinance it into their own name to release the other person from the mortgage and then also release them from ownership. It can be great if the kids want to stay in their home or if the parents want to prioritize the kids staying in the home for the stability of staying in the same place, of being with their friends in the neighborhood, staying in the same school. But again, just want to make sure that there is a very clean break because I have seen it where, say, somebody removes themselves from title, but they're still in the mortgage, and that can wreck your credit if the party that is paying the mortgage doesn't. The other thing that is important for the second option is making sure that the spouse that is staying in the home can afford it. So a lot of times with my clients, what I recommend with is before you sign an agreement that says, yes, I'm willing to take on this debt, I'm willing to do this and refinance the home into my own name, talk to a loan officer like me and go through the calculations. Make sure that the person that is obligating themselves to keep the home can actually do that. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, clients come to me after they already have a signed agreement that is requiring them to refinance the home. And unfortunately, because of just mortgage guidelines, maybe we can't count all of the child support, or maybe we can't count child support yet, or alimony, or whatever other situation there may be, and that person is not able to actually carry through what they have agreed to in the divorce decree. The third option is you could continue to own the home together temporarily. So sometimes this looks like continuing on as far as continuing with the mortgage and the title still in both spouses' names. So they may have other living arrangements and the kids stay stable in the home and the parents are switching in and out. So I don't see that as often, but that is an option to consider. And again, like anything else in this, it does require clear legal agreements. So you understand who's responsible for the payment and having verification that it's being made on time because a missed mortgage payment can be so detrimental to a credit report. So one missed payment can drop your score by as much as 50 points. And that's the reason that I keep enforcing this from making sure that there is clear delineation of who owes what, who is responsible for what payment. Like I said, one of my biggest things before you are agreeing with your ex and their representation, if they have an attorney, is to make sure that what you are agreeing to, you are going to be able to accomplish. And that looks like talking with a loan officer and making sure that the mortgage guidelines that are going to apply to your situation will work out the way that you intend for them to. Now, one of the biggest things that comes up when someone is going to keep the home and refinance it into their own name is how do they give their spouse, how do they give their ex the equity in the home? And that's because any attorney, any advice that you're going to get around divorce is to make sure you get your fair share of whatever assets are part of the marriage. And a lot of times the way that that works is if somebody is trying to buy out their spouse's equity in the home, they may be dipping into retirement funds, they may be getting a 401k loan or other things like that that can impact them in a huge way later on in life. But there's a way that you can do this that a lot of people don't know about, and it's one of the best ways to handle if you're trying to separate equity through a divorce. So let's look at this with numbers. Let's say that the home is worth $100,000. The maximum that you can borrow with a traditional cash out refinance would be $80,000. So if you needed to, say, give your ex $20,000 in equity, the maximum that you would be able to go up to is $80,000. And if you needed more, then you would be dipping into some of these other funds. Additionally, a cash out refinance typically carries a slightly higher interest rate. So you can borrow less and you have to pay more for it. There is a conventional guideline that talks about buying out a co-owner, or an equity buyout, essentially. And when that is the situation, when both owners have been on the title for at least 12 months, and there's a legal agreement stating how that equity is to be split, then that allows you to go up to 95% of the value of the home for the new loan amount, and you're not penalized with a slightly higher interest rate. So what that allows is the flexibility of being able to tap into the equity that is already in the home, and you split it however the agreement says that you do. Let's say for simple math, it's 50-50, and then your ex is getting their portion, and then you now have a new mortgage that is just in your name, and the title is just in your name. So it's a much, much better way to satisfy that requirement of splitting that equity or splitting that asset than trying to tap into other long-term assets like a retirement fund or 401k or things like that, or stocks that have a much larger growth potential over time versus keeping it all contained basically with the home and with the mortgage. Another thing that really comes up during separation and divorce is making sure that if child support or alimony, spousal support payments are going to be factored in or need to be factored in to, say, refinance a home or to buy another home, that need to understand how long you have to receive those payments. So they either have to be received for 3 or 6 months, depending on the loan type, and that amount has to be documented to be at least what the agreement says. So if, let's say, the agreement says $1,000 a month and $750 actually is deposited into the account and $250 was made up by, say, paying some sports enrollment fees or things like that, that won't qualify. If the agreement says it's $1,000, mortgage guidelines say we have to at least see $1,000 going into the account, and it has to be an account that is in our borrower's name. So it cannot be a joint account. It needs to be an account that is just in our borrower's name for either that 3 or 6 month timeline. So that is really important to know, because if you are timing up, again, say a refinance or a purchase or things like that, we want to make sure that there is going to be enough history of that payment being received in the right way so that income can be counted. Now, divorce can be emotionally draining. There's no real way around that, but it shouldn't wreck your credit too. There are a couple things that you want to keep in mind regarding your credit when you're going through a divorce. One thing is to keep making payments on time. Make the minimum payment, because you don't want to start a snowball effect of missed payments, which drop your credit score, which make it more difficult to, say, refinance later, to get new loans, get new credit, all of those kind of things. If you do have joint credit, try to separate it as quickly as possible, in the sense of as quickly as your attorney says that you can or is feasible according to your agreement. When it comes to joint debt, if you have an agreement that says that the other party is responsible for it, let's say that there is an auto loan and the wife is going to pay it, then with the husband, if, say, he's getting a new mortgage, we can exclude that loan payment from his calculations as far as how much he can qualify for. We're saying, hey, you don't have to pay that because she's going to pay that. However, and as long as you remain a joint borrower on that debt, you are responsible for it in the sense of how it's going to show up in your credit score. So if a payment is missed, even if the other person is responsible, then that will still hurt your scores. So try to separate the debt as quickly as possible while everything is still within your control and you can make sure that those payments are being made. And lastly, it's never a bad idea to kind of boost up your credit monitoring during this time. So there are many free options, and really what you're looking for is to make sure that accounts that you expect to be closed, so say that you do, split a debt and it's being paid off or it's being refinanced into the other person's name alone, you want to make sure that that is getting cleared off of your credit. I know that you have a lot of things to track right now, but again, keeping your credit in good shape when you've worked so hard to get it there will serve you in the long run. And remember, I do have a link to all my divorce resources in the description notes. So when it comes to divorce, there are 4 major mistakes that I see people make. One of the first ones is not talking to a lender soon enough. If there is going to be any kind of real estate involved, any kind of mortgage, I do recommend talking with a lender like myself so you have the right answers of not only what you want to do and what you feel comfortable doing, but what's possible when it comes to mortgage guidelines. It can be incredibly frustrating to feel like you are at the finish line, you have a signed agreement and you're ready to move forward, and you can't because the way that the agreement is written is legally correct, but it doesn't jive with mortgage guidelines, and you are stuck on the sidelines longer getting ready to start this next chapter of your life. The second one is not splitting joint debts or refinancing soon enough. So again, whenever you're talking about anything that is on your credit report that you are a co-borrower for, you don't want that to be in somebody else's control and you don't know if those payments are being made. And that's simply because a single missed payment can have a huge impact on your score, and then it can start to snowball that puts you deeper and deeper into a hole that is difficult to get out, and it wasn't even your responsibility for how you got there. The third thing is rushing into a new home without a clear budget. So I completely understand. I've been there. I completely understand wanting to have a clean start and having a fresh new chapter for this part of your life. However, you really want to make sure, because there are so many changes, you want to have a clear idea of what your budget will be like post-divorce, and then it's going to be something comfortable for you to afford. Again, a conversation with a lender early in the process can help give you those assurances, not just from, again, kind of a guideline and sort of high level standpoint, but we are able to then give you customized numbers so you know exactly what it looks like in terms of a monthly payment. If you are purchasing a home, what your down payment and closing costs would be. And simply by having those numbers in black and white, that will give you a lot of peace of mind as you're agreeing to things through the divorce and then moving forward to that new chapter. And the last thing is just simply being in control of your finances. So a lot of times with couples, one person sort of takes point on the finances and the other spouse is handling other things. But when you are going through a separation and divorce, you are your best advocate, and looking out for what your options are in terms of your assets and your debts, and particularly being able to monitor your credit to make sure that, again, the divorce doesn't impact that, as that will make things difficult down the road. You want to make sure that you are staying on top of this, even if it's new, even if it's not something that you've handled before. Make sure that you have the right experts around you and the right support system to help you make sense of all of this, because it's going to be important to set that foundation to be able to have comfortable life moving forward. I won't sugarcoat it. Divorce is tough, but your financial future doesn't have to be. So to recap, you do have options when it comes to your home. There is a equity buyout refinance that makes it a lot easier and cheaper to buy your ex. You're going to want to pay attention to your credit to make sure that unfortunate things don't happen that make it harder on yourself, and avoid common mistakes that could cost you time and money. If you're going through this right now, I'd love to hear from you. So please leave any comment that you have. I'm here to help. And remember to like this video and subscribe for more information about everything you need to know regarding mortgages and home ownership. I'll talk to you next time.